Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Today I want to look at the top 10 best movie tie-in video games because I've been recently playing a few of them and I've seen the topic pop up on the internet a couple of times, so I wanted to go over the ones that I have personally played and personally really enjoyed as well. There will be a couple honorable mentions that I haven't played or one that I don't consider like an actual movie tie-in, that one being Ratchet and Clank, which is technically like a video game version of the movie, but there was also like a movie version of the original game. So the new 2016 one is essentially like a reboot of the original game. So I'm not going to count that one because it's a little bit convoluted there. If I did, that one would be very near the top of the list because that game is exceptional. But other ones that I haven't played that are supposed to be excellent that I just haven't gotten around to are like the Chronicles of Riddick game, The Warriors, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, I've heard is fantastic, Enter the Matrix, and Alien Isolation. So those are ones that I've heard that are fantastic movie tie-ins, but, you know, I haven't personally touched yet. So that out of the way, let's get onto the top 10 list. Number 10, we're going to start off with Shrek 2 for the GameCube or the PlayStation 2. This game is actually really fantastic. You wouldn't think so with being a Shrek 2 tie-in game of all things, but it's actually a really fun adventure game with a co-op element. It's a ton of fun to play with your friends. I remember going to my buddy's house, him having this game and thinking, wow, a crappy movie tie-in video game. Booted it up and had the time of our lives. We play that so many times because it's actually a lot of fun. Of all the movie tie-ins you wouldn't think would be really good, like a sequel to a DreamWorks movie, getting a tie-in video game actually is phenomenal. So that's going to be number 10 here. Number 9 is going to be Batman Returns for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. I personally remember playing this game as a little kid. We had the cartridge. I thought it was so bizarre that I was playing as Batman. It was really hard to figure out the controls for me because I was really, really little, but I had a blast just playing as Batman, and going back and trying this game out again for this list was a ton of fun. This game actually plays phenomenally well. I think a lot of the Super Nintendo era games that got movie tie-ins actually did a great job of capturing their essence, and Batman is the same way. This was probably one of the better adaptations of a Batman like video game that we'd seen up until like Arkham Asylum much later on. Number 8 is going to be Mad Max. This is a tie-in to the film Fury Road, and it actually is a phenomenal open world game with vehicular combat being the central focus. A lot of critics said that this game wasn't that great because of an uninspired world or not a ton to do, a lot of driving around, but that's kind of the point. Is the essence of this is just this big old wasteland, and the vehicular combat means that's kind of the whole drive of the game. A lot of people found out this game was phenomenal because it really did what the source material was looking for. So Mad Max is actually one of those hidden gems that if you haven't tried it out, I actually highly recommend you go get a used copy because it's pretty cheap and it's a ton of fun. The user reviews will say that much higher things than what the critics said at the time. Number 7 is going to be Super Star Wars games for the Super Nintendo. Again, some more tie-in video games. This really let you feel like a Jedi on the Super Nintendo, and it was so cool. These games let you play as Luke, utilizing the lightsaber. The platforming is exceptional. The combat is really fun. This really, again, the Super Nintendo was a great place to capture the essence of the movie without having to deal with 3 dimensions. I think a lot of the pitfalls later on for tie-in video games is that getting into the 3 dimensions just added a whole lot of room for messing up the entire experience or making it really janky or not getting enough production value here. Super Nintendo was much easier to produce for, so they were just able to make like, let's take the overall story, but then we'll make like a platform or an action game, and it really works on this as well. Super Nintendo Star Wars games are phenomenal. Number 6 is going to be X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is one of the few examples where the video game tie-in is significantly better than the original movie. X-Men Origins Wolverine is derided as one of the worst X-Men movies ever. It's so bad, primarily because they sewed the Merc with a mouth shut. We don't have a good Deadpool in this movie, and besides that, you just have some pretty laughable performances. The storyline isn't that great. It's just a bad movie overall, but the video game is gory and bloody. It's a God of War clone in the best way possible. This game actually rocks. It is so metal. It's a ton of fun. fun, and you wouldn't expect it, again, from a movie that is so bad, but they made a much better video game out of it. Number 5 is going to be The Grinch. Now, this is a personal bias for myself. This game isn't nearly polished as well as it definitely could be. It doesn't play as well as it should a lot of the times. It is a janky, visually unappealing mess in a lot of ways. But it's also a ton of fun, and that's what I value most in this game. There are tons of things presentation-wise that you can say, wow, that looks absolutely garbage. You can point and laugh, and I absolutely agree with you. But the gameplay is surprisingly really fun. I really enjoy this game. I actually complete it once a year during Christmas time because I just have so much fun playing this game. I played the original on the Dreamcast. You can play it on the PlayStation 1 as well. I just really love this game. You go through unique areas that aren't specific to the movie. Like you have the Whoville, like typical, like we see in the Jim Carrey movie. There's also lots of lines and dialogue that gets cut straight from there. That's hilarious with their performances. But you also go to other places like Who Forest, the dump. You also, I can't remember the final area, but you have 4 unique areas to go to. You're smashing presents. You're getting blueprints for cool devices. The game is actually pretty darn fun, despite all of its flaws as well. So it's going to be sitting here at number 5. Number 4 is going to be any Lego adaptation of movies. Specifically, though, I will be looking at the Star Wars, Lego Star Wars, and the Lego Harry Potter games. Those are the ones I had the most experience with. But you could point at a lot of other franchises and say that Lego does a really good job of adapting these franchises in the way that makes the Lego games silly and fun at the same time. I remember playing the Lego Star Wars games with my friends and having a really good time with those. They're really enjoyable. The dialogue is witty. And it's a very unserious time, but then you get to experience the world, and they built this world really well with the Lego pieces in mind. Everything is destructible. It's just a really beautiful thing. My wife actually has completed the Lego Harry Potter games twice through. They're some of the only video games she's completed from start to finish, and I think that's really cool. She really enjoyed them. She loves Harry Potter. These games are really fun. She got the platinum trophies for me and then did all again the second time, just because she could. So the Lego Harry Potter games, the Lego Star Wars games, look at like Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. There's tons of franchises that represented in Lego games, and they do it so well. Maybe the later games haven't done it as well, but the original ones for sure really captured like the essence of Lego and did it in a really charming way. So that's going to be number 4. Number 3 is going to be Disney's Aladdin. Now again, going back to the Super Nintendo era, they just made some phenomenal games. You could substitute this in for some other Disney games as well. You could get in the DuckTales game. I don't know if that's specifically a movie tie-in or anything like that, but you could get in The Lion King. You could say Hercules. You have Tarzan. You have some really great examples of good adaptations for video games. Again, I think the platforming and the side-scrolling makes for a good experience to try and emulate the kind of the idea of the movie without having to do bit for bit, like remake shot for shot. I think they just did a fantastic job. For my money, it's going to be the SNES Aladdin game. You could say the Genesis version as well. Because they're 2 different games, I always played the NES one. I didn't have the Genesis one growing up. I didn't get a Genesis until I was like 13 or 14 years old, secondhand. So I played the SNES version. I think it's more true to the movie. I love the platforming elements. I think it's really smooth. Shinji Mikami, of all people, directed this game. This one was made by Capcom. I think it's fantastic. I love the Disney Aladdin game. I think it really does a great homage to the movie while also having the SNES platforming that we love. So that's going to be number 3 on this list. Number 2 is going to be GoldenEye 007 for the Nintendo 64. This is one of those instances where I feel like the game is better than the movie as well. I think mostly for the cultural aspect of it. The multiplayer for 007 is one of those things that's ingrained into all of our memories that if we played that on the Nintendo 64. Again, I had buddies when I was growing up. I was very, very little, but I'd go to his house and I would play 007 with him. We'd have a phenomenal time. The golden gun was my weapon of choice, even though it was really hard to get your one shot in and get the kill. I really enjoyed that. We always would ban Oddjob, of course, because he's too small. It was just so much fun. And on top of that, the missions are fantastic. The gameplay is really smooth. This was made by Rare. They really kind of brought first-person shooters into the spotlight for consoles, and on the Nintendo 64 of all consoles with the craziest controller of all time. But it worked. It worked exceptionally well. This game is still so lauded today because of its accessibility. They have a recent port on the Nintendo Switch and on the Xbox where you can play online again. This is so cool that they have this, and it's also in the speedrunning community a really well speedrun game. And that's really fantastic. So 007 is going to be sitting here at number 2. And my personal number 1 is going to be Spider-Man 2 for the Nintendo GameCube. Again, for the PlayStation 2, that era of games. I cannot believe how good this game is. In fact, until Insomniac's Spider-Man game, this was easily the best Spider-Man title out there. There were definitely some other really good ones, but this one really captured the web swinging the best, and that's what most people looked forward to when playing this game, myself included. It really emulates the movie pretty well. You have tons of side quests to do. I hate the stupid balloon missions. we get rid of those. You just avoid those and let the kids lose their dang balloons. But the web swinging around New York was so perfect, and the fighting was so much fun. The boss fights were fantastic. Everything about this game was a great adaptation, and I love what they did with it. And again, unless Insomniac's Spider-Man came out on the PlayStation 4, this would still be the pinnacle of Spider-Man games because of how well it captured that web slinging. In fact, most people were worried when Insomniac announced their game that it was not going to have web swinging as good as it was on the Nintendo GameCube like a couple decades prior. This game is fantastic. I love everything they did with it. I like going back and revisiting this one. This is my favorite movie adaptation of all time. Let me know in the comment section down below what your favorite adaptations were, if I missed any or if I haven't played some of them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.